I have a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee WJ, and I had a cooling fan problem. So the fan didn't turn on when the engine went up above 210 degrees, and you can see I could see the indicator go up on the temperature, and the fan never came on. So this is a known problem for the Jeep Grand Cherokees, or the Jeeps at that time, from 1999 to 2004. In order to figure out where the problem is, usually it can be one of the four things, or maybe multiple of the four things. So the first thing is probably the cooling fan, and the cooling fan is right underneath this housing here, and that cooling fan over time can pull a lot more current, which burns out the relay. The cooling fan relay is located right underneath in this model from in 2001, I think 99 to 2001 or 2. This was located underneath this headlight, and I'll show you how to go and replace that. And the third thing is the coolant temperature sensor. So this is the coolant temperature sensor located right here. And the fourth one can be the thermostat. So the thermostat opens up and it lets the coolant into the engine after it gets to a certain temperature. So over time the thermostat can go bad as well. In my case, when I went onto the highway and there was air coming into the radiator, the engine would cool down. So that made me believe that the thermostat is fine. So I didn't end up changing the thermostat, but then I changed this coolant temperature sensor, the radiator fan, as well as I replaced the cooling fan relay, which is located under here. One thing, I have seen a lot of videos where they show, in order to take the cooling fan off, you have to remove this whole panel for the radiator, and remove the radiator or push it back. And this is the structure that holds the radiator, or holds the whole front side of this car, and mostly the radiator. So you can loosen up the radiator a little bit. There are two screws. There is one screw right here, and then there is one screw over here, which will let you wiggle it a little bit. I really didn't need it, so what I did was I used a flex extension to my socket driver, and that helped me release the 4 bolts, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. To get to the relay, the cooling fan relay, there is one bolt on the headlight. It's a 7mm bolt, and if you take that bolt off, it's very easy to get the access to the relay. Now, my relay in this Jeep was changed back probably 7-8 years ago, and so I have an easy access. So this one, if you pull out the front passenger side headlight, you will see there is the relay sitting in there, and this plastic was already cut before by the dealer, and so I had easy access to the relay, and it's screwed in by 2 bolts. I'm going to put the bolts in. This is a new relay, a Mopar relay that I got. I didn't take a chance with the doorman, but I've heard the doorman will also work. This was like a $62-63 including shipping on Amazon, and it worked perfectly fine. I had bought a cheaper one off eBay, and that didn't work, so I didn't want to take a chance with aftermarket, so I went with the Mopar. And you can see it's the same number that's on the original relay, and this one is working perfectly. I also ordered a little bit of thermal paste, they say, to put underneath that relay so that it can transfer the heat to the body of the Jeep, and it will cool down. So if it heats up too much, either due to the fan going bad and pulling too much current through it, this relay often goes bad, and they decided to put a solid state relay, and all the Chryslers and the Jeeps have this similar type of relays those times. I think these relays are equivalent to the Chrysler part number as well as a Jeep, and for the Jeep it goes from Grand Cherokee's 99 to 2004. So this is a 2001 and 2002. I think in 2003 and 4 they moved the relay up over here so it can be accessed underneath this panel over here. So here's the fan assembly, the cooling fan, and you can see this is the top one, the other top bolt. There is these two are the difficult ones, and the most difficult one is the one over here, which goes on the driver's side, lower assembly there. And this fan is held by these 3 bolts, 1, 2, and 3. I'm having some trouble with the 3rd bolt. I have to probably cut it because it's all rusted out. So I hooked up the fan to test it, and it is running very well. So I will turn it off and then show how to pull the fan out easily and without taking the whole front radiator out. The problem with the fan is there are 4 bolts that hold the fan the fan cover, and it's easy to get to the top 2. The difficult one is the one in the bottom, and I'll show a better picture right there. There is one right over here. That's the difficult one because the power steering assembly is there and it's very difficult to get to it. So to take the fan assembly out, what I did was I bought this little flexible extension, and this one is going to flex as you put it in, and I put a 10 millimeter this is a quarter-inch socket in there, because I had a 10 millimeter which is 3/8, which was very difficult to get in, and that didn't work. But as soon as I put a quarter, and this has a much thinner wall in there, and it needs to get just to pull out the bolts. So I was able to get in with this flexible extension, and then I used like one of these tools to get in there, and from the bottom of the car, and I was able to take out the lower bolt over here. And this is on the driver's side. The passenger side was easier, but again this is a little difficult because this frame is too close to the bolt right there, and so once the frame it doesn't allow any socket or a wrench to go closer, and you can see the frame is a little bent over here, and if I can focus it, and the bolt is so close to the bent frame over there, that the curvature of the frame, that it's very difficult to get a socket in there. But if you get a tool which is a flex tool I got off internet, and this will help to get anything with a little curvature in there. And I have two of these, and this is the one has been very helpful. It's a two-piece flexible extension set, and it's from Neiko, N-E-I-K-O tools, and that worked pretty well. The cooling fan has a connector over here, and this is again a little difficult to disconnect. So what we do is you pull the red tab to one side to the other side, and then there is a little, if you push down on this bottom of the harness, and then it unlocks it, and then it pulls it out. But if you don't push this at the bottom, it will not come off because it's locked over here. You can see the lock mechanism right there. So this is what came with the new fan, and this fan I bought pretty cheap off eBay, and they were, seems to be a good fan. This is made by Topaz and was probably like $45 on Amazon or eBay. And also what I did was I bought a tester to test the fan, because these fans, when they get older, they kind of start pulling a lot of amperage, a lot of current, and that fries the circuit or the relay in there. So if the amperage goes high with my amp meter was only has a limit of 10 amps, but I expected that this was pulling probably more than that. So I bought this meter which can measure up to 100 amps, and I think they are used to measure amperage for RVs and stuff, and this I used to test the old fan. So now I have put it back together, and the fan is in its place. It's a little tricky to get it in there. You have to squeeze these if you don't want to take out these hoses, the coolant hoses. It might be useful to take it out. I didn't take it out, and I just wanted to do it by squeezing these hoses and then pushing this in. On this side it's a little tricky because there are quite a few pieces of pipes that will prevent you from getting in, but if you wiggle it in both sides, you will be able to put it inside. And now I'm using the same extension to put the bolts in, and you can see the bolt is right there, and this flex extension allows me to tighten it without worrying about the space there not being able to get in. So this one is done. I will tighten the other one over here as well. There is one bolt right here underneath this coolant cap, and the lower one I'm going to leave it out because that's not required. If I put 3 of them, and this lower one is another tricky one, and I will be able to put it in by using the same flexible hose. The bottom 2 bolts are the difficult ones, and you can see there is one bolt right there which is difficult to get to because of this frame is curved over here. So if you try to put a socket, it will not hold the bolt. And the other one is in the same location, but it's hidden right there inside. And there are some hoses and also the steering fluid, these pipes that go through. So you have to be careful when you put it in that the steering fluid, the hoses are not damaged. It's difficult to show here, but once you go underneath the car, you'll be able to see and how it is. It has a notch. The fan cover has a notch for one of these hoses. I'm going to put this bolt in, and with these 3 bolts it should be secure enough. So the next time I have to take, I don't have to worry about the bolt on the driver's side, lower one. To put this bolt in, I'm going to use the flex socket extension, and it's easy to reach with this socket extension if you use a 10 millimeter. Now this lower bolt is tightened, and it came out to be that the wire harness that came with the new fan was a little shorter, and so what I did, I pulled it towards the outside instead of routing it the way the original fan was. It would have not reached it, and put it like this so that it's easier to get to it and connect it, and just to make sure it is not going to hit any of the moving parts here, or the belt. That's will be a little difficult, but it should be secure in here. After putting the fan in and testing it at the temperature, it turns on around 206 to 208 degrees, just below the 210 mark. But what I found was the fan was running in an opposite direction. So the cold air from the outside goes through the radiator into the engine. What I found was the polarity, the connections were reversed in this fan, and it was blowing air from the engine back through the radiator, and I could feel that there was hot air coming out from the front of the radiator. So I looked at the fan, and I found that it was in fact running in the wrong direction. So here is the original fan, and you can see that there is an arrow mark. It should turn this way, and this is looking from the front, and this side is the back. So when I looked at the connections, the connectors were reversed. This green lead and the red and the black one is the ground. They were reversed in the new fan. So I tried to open the connector here and tried to see if I can reverse those, but it was kind of a little difficult. So what I did was I did cut the wire in between, and then I used some splices. So these are the splices I used to connect it in the reverse order, and now it's running in the right direction correctly, and it's pulling air from the front outside into the engine. So when you turn on the fan, you will see from the back it should turn this way, so that the vanes, you can see it's pulling air from the front, and it should move this way when you look at from the back. And also you can see the arrow diagram in here. So now it's running fine. I'll see how long it lasts. And this was a $42 fan I bought off eBay, and it's been running fine so far. The original Mopar one might be a better alternative to that, but it was a little more expensive, so I tried to take a chance with this aftermarket fan. And that's my video for fixing how the Jeep, this is a 2001 Jeep, it has around 112,000 miles. It's now 17 years old, so and it's running pretty fine. I changed the radiator, the cooling fan and the cooling fan relay. Those were the two that went bad. I hope you all will like the video and will help to fix your fan issues in your Jeep.